So we're picking up from where we left off yesterday talking about genetics. The information in this doesn't necessarily have a place to go in your notes, but if you see something that might be useful for you to know, you might want to find a place and add it into your notes. You're going to be able to use that page on the quiz for this material, so if there's something important, you should probably write it down on that sheet of paper. So Mendel was looking at these different traits in pea plants. They had two different versions for each of these traits. And he discovered that one of those versions is dominant and one of them is recessive. Don't worry about which one is dominant and why one is recessive. Has to do with what the DNA is and how those genes interact with each other. For now, that's not really important. Just that one is dominant and one is recessive. So Mendel took those and he started out with some pure breeding or homozygous individuals of each type, and he crossed them, and he got in his F1 generation, the offspring of that first cross, ones that only looked like the dominant trait. So that was kind of one way to figure out the dominant trait. If you cross pure breeding individuals, crossed a smooth with a wrinkled, you got out only smooth. That tells you that smooth is the dominant trait. Now, he then took that F1 generation and he self-crossed them, and he looked at the F2 generation. So in that F2 generation of the cross for all of these different traits, so he did this, ultimately thousands and thousands of times, spent a lot of time looking at pea plants, he came up with this ratio of something that was close to 3-to-1 all the time. So that was that important number told him something about the fact that that trait had gone away in the F1 generation and then popped back up in this ratio of 3-to-1 in the F2 generation. Now, we have a tool called Punnett squares that can help us understand how that actually works. But before we get to that, a couple other pieces of information here. Mendel was looking at this in pea plants. There are some traits in humans that follow what's called this Mendelian inheritance pattern or dominant recessive inheritance pattern. Most things in humans don't. Most things exist on a spectrum like height, or there's many more than two alleles like eye color. But there are a few that follow this inheritance pattern, and understanding this basic pattern can help us understand how the more complex ones work. And the other important thing to keep in mind is that all of this is really just whatever genotype we have. The ultimate phenotype is ultimately a combination of the genes and the environment interacting with each other. So it's really much more complex than anything we're going to learn here. So let's take a look at how Punnett squares work. So this is in the Mendelian Genetics worksheet number 1, and this first page I'm essentially going to walk you through what is showing here. So this guy Punnett came up with this way of predicting the possible traits of an offspring if you know something about the parents, and he called this a Punnett square. So the important thing, in order to be able to use one of these squares, you have to know the genotypes of the parents. So for many of these crosses, you're going to be given the information about what the parents' genotypes are, what alleles the parents have. So in our example problem here, we're given a trait in pea plants that Mendel looked at. Tall is dominant and short is recessive. So we're going to use a big T for dominant, a little t for recessive. It just happened that tall was dominant and short was recessive. It could be the other way around. It just happens not to be in pea plants. So in this example cross we're going to look at here, we have one parent that is heterozygous, which again means different for tall. So big T, little t would be their genotype. And the other parent is homozygous for short. Homozygous means the same. They're short, that's the recessive one, so it must be two little t's. Now, in order to fill out a Punnett square, each of these parents has these two alleles. They can only give one of their two alleles to a possible offspring. So we're going to take that first tall parent and we're going to split their two alleles up into the spaces outside. We've got a 4x4 square here. We're going to put on the outside of the rows the two possible alleles that big T, little t parent could donate. That's representing the two that they could give to their offspring. And we're doing the same thing for the other parent. Notice I've switched kind of which parent is where here. It doesn't matter. You could put this parent over here or this parent over here. It's not going to make a difference to your outcome. That's so I switched that kind of on purpose to make that point. Now, here, in order to figure out what the possibilities for the offspring are, the children of these two parents, we had our big T little t parent here and our little p parent here. We fill in the boxes where those intersect, kind of like a multiplication table. So we got our row heading and our column heading. We get a big T little t here, a big T little t here, a little t and a little t here, and a little t and a little t here. So the inside of this square here are the possibilities of what children we could have from these two parents. So there are 4 different possibilities. There's always going to be 4 possibilities because every parent has 2 alleles, and 2 times 2 is 4. And each of these is equally likely to occur because each parent is equally likely to donate either of their 2 alleles. So because there's 4 boxes and each is equally likely to occur, there's 1 in 4 chance, or 25% chance, of each of these boxes occurring in the offspring. So we can express this in a couple different ways. We can express this as the percent chance of an offspring having a particular genotype or phenotype, or we could express it as the ratio of phenotypes or genotypes we would expect to see in the offspring. So for percent chances here, 2 out of our 4 boxes are big T little t, so we would expect to see 50% of our offspring being big T little t or tall. And we would expect to see the other 50%, the other 2 boxes, being little t or being the short phenotype. We can also express this as a ratio. We would expect to see 2 tall for every 2 short offspring. If we say had 100 offspring, if we saw 2, then the next 2 would be tall, the next 2 would be short, and so on. And we can do that for genotypes as well. Now, because there are 4 boxes, when we write these ratios, we typically just count up the number of boxes that represent each genotype or phenotype and fill that in with the appropriate genotype or phenotype to write this as a ratio. Now, one important thing to keep in mind is that these are only predicted possibilities. Each parent had an equally likelihood of passing on either one of their alleles. So this is ultimately kind of like flipping a coin. There's a 25% chance of each of those boxes, or if we say there's a 50% chance of there being short here, we could ultimately end up with, have them having 5 pea plant babies here and all of them being short or all of them being tall. But if we do more and more offspring, if we get up to say 100 offspring, it's probably going to be pretty close to 50-50. So let's look at a few practice problems here. Here you are told that we're looking at flower color. Big P is representing the purple allele, and little p is representing the allele for white flower color. And you're being told that purple is dominant and white is recessive. So this is information you're being given here. Later on, you figure out how you could determine whether one trait is dominant or recessive. We just chose P as a letter of the alphabet. We could choose any letter we wanted. So now, you're being given some information about the parents and then asked to figure out something about their offspring. So we have a homozygous purple flower. Homozygous means 2 of the same. Purple is dominant, so they must have 2 of the uppercase letters, big P, big P. And a homozygous white flower. Homozygous means 2 of the same. White was recessive, so it must be a little p, little p. Kind of hard to tell the difference between big and lowercase here. Now our big P goes here. Our little p goes here. And we fill out our cross, big P, little p, big P, little p, big P, little p, big P, little p, by pulling in the column and row for each one here. Now, to write a genotypic ratio, we simply count up how many of each possible genotype we have in our square. So all 4 possibilities would be big P, little p. There are 0 other possibilities. So we would have a ratio of 4 big P, little p to 0 anything else. And our phenotypic ratio, we would expect to see 4 purple to 0 white or anything else here. So the ratio is kind of silly here when we have 0 of the other possibilities, but this is how we'd write it if it's 0. And we come up with a percent prediction. We have a 100% chance of having a purple offspring and a 0% chance of having a white offspring in this cross here. So this is kind of a boring cross. Let's look at one that's a little more interesting. If we have a heterozygous purple flower, heterozygous means two different alleles, so they must have a big P and a little p, and a homozygous white flower again. Homozygous is two of the same, white is recessive, we must have two little p's. So I've got my big P, my little p, fill that in, big P here, little p from the row and column, big P from my row and column here, and little p from my row and column here. So my genotypic ratio, I count up, I see two squares that are big P, and I see two squares that are little p. And my phenotypic ratio, what they're going to look like, those big P, little p's are going to be purple, and my little p's are going to be white. Because purple is the dominant trait, so heterozygous ones are going to be purple. And percent probabilities, we have a 50% chance of having a purple offspring here and a 50% chance of having a white offspring. That's for phenotypes. We could also come up with predicted probabilities for genotypes as well. So one more here. If we have a heterozygous purple flower, heterozygous means different, big P, cross between two heterozygous purple flowers. So the other one is also going to be big P. So both parents are big P, big P. This first box is two big P's. And then big P from our row and column here, big P from our row and column here, and little p from our row and column here. So genotypic ratio, now we have three possibilities. We have to write a ratio that's comparing three. I know in math you've never had a ratio of 3 before. Here we can have a ratio of 3. We have one big P, big P, two big P, little p's, and one little p. One thing, the convention is if there's a dominant allele, an uppercase allele, is you typically write it first. So filling in this box, we took the big P from the row here and the little p from the column. And here we took the big P from the column and the little p from the row, but we wrote them both the same way. Right, big P, little p is the same thing as little p, big P, but the convention is to write them this way with the capital letter first. So a phenotypic ratio here, all three that have a big P are going to be purple, because purple is dominant, so 3 out of the possible 4 offspring would be purple, and 1 would be white here. So we have 3 out of 4, that's a 75% chance of having a purple offspring here and a 25% chance of having a white offspring. So the rest of this worksheet asks you to practice with this some more, given some information about a trait, which one's dominant, which one's recessive, given some information about the parents, do a Punnett square, predict something about the offspring. So you got several practice problems like that. The one that's going to be a little bit different is questions 9 and 10 here, where you are given something about the offspring, and you now need to work backwards to figure out the parents. So for that one, a little bit of advice, I would think about if these are the offspring, what has to be in the boxes to give you those offspring, and then working backwards, what had to be the two parents to fill in the boxes that way. So that's how you should go about doing these last two problems here. So good luck.